Who's put foreign troops on Ukrainian soil? There's only one country that's put foreign troops on Ukrainian soil, and that's Russia. They don't want foreign troops on Ukrainian soil. I've got a brilliant idea. They bog off. Ukraine decides what military forces come to Ukraine, not Russia.
So last week in London, you called for European troops on Ukrainian soil, much against the kind of general consensus of actions to take regarding Ukraine. Since then, we've seen what was effectively a Russian drone attack on Poland. Has that changed the calculus at all, or has it made that call even more urgent?
Well, I think that the Russian incursion was provocative and was responded to in the correct way. But the drones, as far as I understand it, were shot down. What I'm trying to get at is that, we're in danger of a kind of ridiculous chicken and egg situation here, or a trap by Putin, whereby all these so-called security guarantees and boots on the ground and coalition of the willing, none of that becomes relevant until such time as there is a ceasefire or armistice, which of course is entirely within his gift. And the circumstances, the conditions for that deployment, if we insist on a ceasefire, may never be met, because it'll be like the Donbass. He'll just keep going. There'll be some part of the theatre where he keeps chipping away, because that's plainly his modus operandi. That's what he does, and I see no sign whatever that he wants to fix this thing. And so what I'm saying is you need a package of things that are going to start changing his psychology and changing his strategic goal. He needs to think, this thing, I'm probably not going to get back the whole of Ukraine. They are going to fight on, and maybe a ceasefire is actually in my long term. Get back to, get off of wartime economies, get back to economic growth, maybe he needed to change his thinking. Because at the moment he's thinking for his own political survival, he's better off just grinding away. So you need all the economic thing, the package of the sanctions, the unfreezing of the assets, et cetera, you need more military help, terrorist missiles, more permissions, give Ukrainians more help, more money for the drones. But then you need something that's going to flip a switch in the Kremlin's brain and make them realize that fundamentally, strategically, this is over. Ukraine is an independent country, and although they may be impossible, it may be impossible to get Putin out of the bits he currently occupies, the cost of trying to get the rest is going to be too great. And it's pointless, because the West has asserted its commitment. And the way for the West to assert its commitment would be to say, well, the coalition of the willing will start to arrive. And they won't. Of course, they're not going to fight the war. The Ukrainians are much better than Western Europeans at fighting the war. They're not going to go into harm's way. They're going to do logistics. They're going to do training. They're going to do whatever to backfilling is useful. But fundamentally, they're going to be there to make the point that Ukraine decides what military forces come to Ukraine, not Russia.
The Kremlin has been repeatedly very vocal in saying that it doesn't want foreign troops on Ukrainian soil. Do you think that...
Who's put foreign troops on Ukrainian soil? There's only one country that's put foreign troops on Ukrainian soil, and that's Russia. They don't want foreign troops on Ukrainian soil. I've got a brilliant idea. They bog off.
They are insistent on European and US troops not being here, though. But do you think that's because they are scared of that?
It's for the very reason I give. It's because they can see that this is not about territory, this is about destiny. And the point I'm trying to make with my suggestion is that you've got to show them that the destiny the Ukrainians have chosen is irrevocable. And they've chosen to be part of the Western security architecture, however you want to express it. They're going to be part of that family. That doesn't mean they're ever going to be threatening to Russia, but that's what they want. They don't want to be part of the Russian Empire.
I mean, Russia has laid down multiple red lines all throughout the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and Europe has had the courage to cross them with like tanks, F-16s and everything. Is foreign troops just another red line, and does Europe just need to have the courage to cross it?
Get on with it. Get on with it. I mean, as I'm sure you remember, before we had Project Orbital, Operation Orbital. We trained we had a lot of UK soldiers here doing training. They then, after February 22, they then left and the training was done outside Ukraine. But what's the difference? Do it again in Ukraine. That's what I would say.
What you described as an incursion in Poland with Russian drones. I mean, everyone seems to be under the understanding that it was a deliberate action by Russia. So why do you think Russia chose to do this at this time?
Because they want to poke and they want to prod, and they want to show they're willing to do stuff that may alarm Western strategic thinkers. Because nobody wants a war, but on the other hand, a real full-scale war between NATO and Russia. But on the other hand, I don't think anybody in NATO is really too fussed about it. 19 drones, I think most of them got shot down, if not all of them. And what is NATO? What is NATO really supposed to do? Are we supposed to send? Supposed to launch a thermonuclear response to Smolensk and Moscow? Come on,
I mean, NATO's response has been, like you said, to down the drones. There's been nothing further than that. But
I'm struggling to see what else you could do. Go and blow up a shed in a field in Russia.
Well, you could target the factories where they make these drones. But if we don't have
if you do that, okay, but if you do that, nobody got hurt in Poland, as far as I understand it, right?
Might have just been a case of luck. There were some houses damaged.
They were very lucky. Yeah. They were very lucky, and I think if there had been bloodshed, then it would be a very different story. And then I think there probably would be retaliation.
But if Russia is prepared to send these drones over, which could have caused bloodshed, and you're saying that would provoke a different response, then sort of morally, why are we not responding to this as if?
Because I think the risk is that you do have bloodshed. I mean, if we say, well, how would you? Suppose if you blew up a drone factory in Russia, and we killed a lot of people. I don't know whether our publics would think that was proportionate. I'm not sure I think that's proportionate. And I think that Article 5 of the NATO treaty doesn't demand, that a sort of tripwire response to the slightest incursion into NATO territory. What it demands is that the NATO territory is 100% protected, and that it certainly was. I mean, at the time, right now, there are no Russians in Poland. If it was like 1980, and there were Russian tanks in Warsaw, which is, I remember, and probably you don't, but it was in my lifetime, it would be a very different story. Because then NATO has plans, in the event of an actual Russian attack on NATO, to do very, very terrible things, right? And things that will mean that the Russians really don't do it again.
But don't we now sort of live in a world where Russia can attack a NATO country and basically get away with it unpunished? Isn't that what's happened this week?
No, I don't agree with that. So the drones got shot down, and I'm not clear what damage the NATO country has sustained. And the NATO country, is, as we speak, currently uninfested by Russians, or Russian military.
So you're happy with the NATO response from this week?
I think it was right. Yeah, they did. They just took out the drones. I think it's insane of the Russians to do it. But
what happens next time it happens?
Well, I think they'll get taken out again. And it may be that if it happens again, then consideration will have to be given to making it impossible for this kind of intimidation to take place.
Isn't this just classic Russian salami slicing tactics, though?
It's sort of poking. They're poking. Yeah, they're poking. But they do. That's what they do. But what it shows to me is how vastly better it would have been in the early 2000s to have got Ukraine into NATO, because I don't believe this war would ever have happened, and I think Ukraine would have been properly protected. like Poland is today. Folks, I'm asked to ask you to support Ukrainian journalism and become a member of the Kyiv Independent.